Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to the 16th edition of the Praxis Museums Project Group's webinar series. I am Carrie Reid, President of Dala Projects, where I empower museums through traveling exhibitions. I am a consultant, a broker, and a producer, and I am delighted to serve as your moderator today.
And I am Carolynne Harris, principal and founder of Carolynne Harris Consulting. I'm a museum planner that works primarily in capital projects with new museums, expansions, and renovations. And I will be moderating the Q&A today and a couple other questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Warner. I'm the president and CEO at Fernbank Museum, which is in Atlanta, Georgia. We're a 120-acre science education campus that includes a museum of natural history, giant screen theater, and an old growth forest and outdoor nature area.
Hi, I'm Joanie Philipp, and I'm president of Cosmic Picture. I spent the first 35 years of my career in a large science museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. And by the time I retired, we were a large hands-on science center, 2 children's museums, a nature center in the park, as well as a 20,000 square foot STEM professional development center. Now I'm focusing in my retirement on one of my loves, which is giant screen films.
Hi, my name is Paul Marsh. I'm the Vice President of Liberty Science Center's marketing department, and we're located in Jersey City, New Jersey, which is just across the river from Manhattan. So we have a wonderful view of the Statue of Liberty as well. We also have the largest planetarium in the Western Hemisphere. It's about 8 years old now, but it's still cutting edge. We have a 3D theater, and I really enjoy being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Praxis for those of you that don't know about us. We are a museum professionals network whose members are seasoned professionals. We think work at the top of our industry. We really want to share ideas and best practices, new techniques, and new technologies. We are working in many aspects of museum projects conception, from master planning, content creation, lighting, media, communications, construction, fabrication, and operations. And our combined network stretches across both the country and the industry. We try to provide and be a powerful resource to you as you contemplate many aspects of your own projects and work life. Our audience and clientele are museum leaders, exhibit designers, and architects, all vested in creating thoughtful, engaging, state-of-the-art, and timely museum experiences.
Thanks, Carolynne. Today, we're talking about earned revenue. We have some goals from our session today. One, to inspire new thinking about earned revenue, to share examples and insights from the field, and to offer practical takeaways. A couple of housekeeping notes. This webinar in entirety is about 60 minutes. Within that 60-minute window, we hope to have ample time for some questions and answers, which will be moderated by Carolynne. At that time, I'll ask you to use the Q&A feature to post any questions, and we'll address and hopefully get to most or all of them. And to set the stage a little bit about why we're here, I think it's really important to talk about why museums matter. Remember when we were faced with a global pandemic and every museum was forced to shut its doors, some to never reopen? Among many things, I learned that museums as a place is important. It's a destination, a home to a collection, a place where memories are made and children are inspired. We're all still here either because we work for or in a museum, or we depend on their survival because we provide a service or a product to museums. Today, we read the news or an internal memo and learn that federal funding is even more limited. For many of us, not much has changed. For museums and service providers whose operations and projects suffer because of this, I've assembled some seriously talented and intelligent individuals who are eager to share their own success stories, advice, and inspiration as it relates to earned revenue, and how to truly thrive as a museum. My hope is that you will at least have one important takeaway from this conversation and that you will share that with your colleagues. So this is not a doom and gloom type of discussion. So defining earned revenue, basically anything that's not a donation, and beyond general admission, we've highlighted some avenues for earned revenue here. Traveling exhibitions being near and dear to my heart, with admission spikes for the feature exhibition that you're hosting, and on top of general admission, maybe there's themed merchandise. And then I added in-house productions for those that are open to considering bringing in the right partners and resources. Please talk to me about what it would take to create a traveling exhibition and having that being another area of earned revenue. And then we'll get into a lot of these other areas, including like VR and giant screen film, theater, programs, summer camps, school groups, rentals like weddings and special events. But we all kind of determined in our previous discussions that diversification of all of these is very essential. Thank you to those who completed the survey that we passed around. We're all in agreement that the dominant pillars for earned revenue are admissions, memberships, and rentals. Everyone that has the capacity to host a traveling exhibition is on board. That is an important thing. We're all faced with challenges for sure. And something that I'd really like to highlight is the appetite amongst our survey completers within our network for a sense of community. You all seem to want to talk to your peers. And if there's any way that we can help to facilitate that, let's start that here. I was just meeting yesterday in person with my Praxis colleagues, and we talked about this. How can we better facilitate that sense of community? So we'll do something, maybe we'll call it Prax Chats or something, where we'll be a little bit less formal and bring a group together in a setting like this and have a topic. We can unpack this one in October. But yeah, we're very happy to facilitate those conversations. Let's talk with Jennifer. Jennifer and I had a couple of conversations, and we're going to try to get as much as we can out of these next 10 minutes with Jennifer. So I'm going to ask her some questions, bring her on. Jennifer, how much does Fernbank rely on earned revenue versus contributed income? And has this changed in recent months and years?
Thanks, Carrie. It's great to be here with everyone and to learn together in community. Fernbank relies heavily on earned income. We are a younger museum in the museum world. Where we are in Atlanta and in Georgia, there really is no public funding to speak of. And we as an institution have not relied on government grants. So we really, each year, we're looking to earn or go out and ask for contributed income to make up the numbers for us. So on average, we earn up to 90% of our income annually. And Carrie, as you and I've discussed in our how we will analyze that with our CFO and how we assess it internally, some of the sponsorships we will consider earned because there is a great deal of fulfillment associated with that. So for us, that has been revenue diversification has been the business model around here. It is a both and mindset with how we operate. And, you know, during COVID, we, like everyone, when we closed our doors, it's shutting off that spigot. So you relied on the contributed income at that time. And so I just go back to it is always a both and you and I have had that conversation, Carrie.
Yep. And I have some quotes here from one of our discussions that everybody just applauded and said that, write that down. You said that philanthropy is what fuels the institution forward, whereas earned revenue is helping you stay current. How do you balance these two so Fernbank can meet its mission?
You know, it starts, several things come to mind, Carrie, in that question. First, having a very cohesive vision and plan of where everyone knows that you're headed internally and with your board, and balancing that. I mean, the earned income is critical. It is people voting with their feet. That is so important to the institution, and that's what will then make sure that you can get the contributed income. It's kind of the first step in many ways. But philanthropy is what allows us to do many of the programs that really are fulfilling the core parts of our mission. It's philanthropy that allows us to offer scholarship admissions so that Title I students can come through. And philanthropy in so many cases, and you know, we are just wrapping up a capital campaign here, and it's those capital campaigns that really are transformative for the institution. That is that fueling it for, it's the jet. I was just had this conversation with our board. It is the fuel that, you know, catapults you into the next phase of your growth, but it needs to be in service of the mission and all that earned revenue. So it has to make sure that you're keeping people coming back in, having the events, the membership growth. So again, I always come back to both and. You can't choose one or the other.
Love it. What did you used to call Fernbank after dark? It was also catchy.
Martinis and
Martinis
IMAX.
and IMAX.
Yes, it was one of the first. We loved
was.
that. You know, we loved that. Here we were many moons ago as a very young institution at that time, and had so many museums from around the country coming and wanting to learn about this event series that we had created. And it was Martinis and IMAX. It was a nighttime event. We, you know, transformed the museum into, of course, running the movies, but live music, cocktails, food. It has evolved, and I think that's one of my other, you know, as we've thought about our discussion today, is always making sure you're evaluating what is the success of that, what was the goal, and is it meeting that, and you know, adapting for success going forward. So it did evolve to become Fernbank After Dark. So it's similar, but one of the big changes, it's less frequent because we realized we had an oversupply at that point. But we now also, we open up the entire museum and are doing science programming as well as running a movie, cocktails, live music. So it's giving those that come after hours even greater exposure to the rest of the museum to tease them to come back. And it's often for us, and I just had this conversation last week at an event that I was participating in here in Atlanta. And someone commented to me, you know, oh, that was my wife. That was where my wife and I went on our first date. And now we're bringing our children back. So it's those moments so that it serves many purposes, but it's also a great earned revenue piece for us, along with our other event rentals for weddings, proms, and whatnot.
Yeah, awesome. Fantastic. Is there anything else you want to say about the and feature, mission and revenue, how you're marrying those two together, carrying it forward?
You know, you always, I mean, for us, everything comes back to first, is it serving the mission? Is it helping fuel that mission? And then it's, you know, needing to, and I know Joanie and Paul will touch on this, really looking at that ROI as well. And, you know, many times we must make a choice. We only have limited resources. And so often, and I would say more, you know, more frequently of late coming out of the pandemic, we often have to think a little more retail versus boutique because you need to have that impact. It helps, it's the numbers. And so it's sometimes you have to make those difficult choices, but doing so with, again, mission and data informed decision making to drive that forward. So I think that's what I would share, and that might be a good segue to my colleagues here.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. We'll move to Paul. Paul and I, we had a couple of really great conversations. We worked together on other things, but I always appreciate Paul's perspective from his role in marketing, and I think you all would have a few things to learn from him. And I'm going to start with what I found to be myself most intriguing. Paul, welcome. You talked about working with an outside agency to help you to better understand and to better target your audience. We have other museum professionals on the call that may benefit from doing the same. Can you talk about this?
Sure. Thanks, Carrie. I'm really thrilled to be here. So, at Liberty Science Center, we employ a research company called Mori Group. I discovered them while I was working and running marketing at the New England Aquarium in Boston. We started using them there as well. And what they do particularly well, they do a lot of things, but one of the things they do particularly well is audience intercepts. So these are post-visit intercepts. So basically, in the olden days, somebody would physically approach somebody and ask them, a number of questions, but just for efficiency reasons and also from some bias issues that may result from that, even unconscious bias, people moved, or marketing groups moved, to a kiosk or to email blasting. So that's what we do now. We do triggered emails. So when you buy a ticket here, we have your email address. In about 24 hours, we send out an email. It asks about 60 questions. And from those, we get a pretty good response from that. And from those questions, we get a lot of information, and it serves the institution really well. It gives us benchmarks against other institutions that Mori Group uses. So you can see kind of where you lie in certain areas, like overall satisfaction ratings, value ratings, net promoter scores, super important. And you can also use that information to help fill out grant proposals, because you do need some demographic information usually in a lot of them. So it serves a number of purposes. What we mainly use it for is identifying audiences that we aren't attracting well. So we know what we are already doing well. We want to know what we're not doing well. We want to know what audience groups, like big ones, that we are not either doing well with or we could do a lot better with. And so what we discovered over the years is that the main decision makers for entertainment for the family is the mom. And that's about 80% and that's only kind of we target moms essentially in our marketing campaigns. And those moms are looking for things to do for their kids, and they want to do fun things. And there are families out there who primarily want to do entertainment related things. So you're talking about families who want to go to baseball games and football games, and they want to go to the movie theater, and they want to go to the mall and do fun things there. We actually have a gigantic mall in our backyard called the Mall of Mall of America. And it's huge, and it has like a Nickelodeon and a ski resort, and it's like indoor. It's insane how much stuff's going on there. And we have to compete against all that. So what we did was we started to bring in exhibitions and offer things that were much more entertainment oriented to suit those families. And then once they get here, then we can introduce them to all the science and exhibitions that we do. And it becomes like a well-rounded experience for the whole family. But you really have to get those families to commit and come in. And we do that by bringing in traveling exhibits that have big brand names, like Daniel Tiger, Curious George, Titanic. And we bring in different experiences for different age groups, which I can get into a little bit more later.
Yeah, so that goes into like the cycle of audiences and how you use that research to guide your ticketing and membership strategy for each of those stages. And in our earlier discussion, you talked a little bit about how things were different when you started at Liberty Science Center too, and I thought that was really interesting. If you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I came to Liberty Science Center about 13 years ago, and they were doing traveling exhibitions, but they weren't name brands, or they just weren't very inspiring. I think they were quite inexpensive, and they weren't really bringing in the kind of audience that they needed and attendance they needed at the time. And so we started to bring in, again, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, finally brought in really a big name brand. We brought in 2 exhibits at the same time, brought in Curious George and Avatar at the time. I'm not sure it's still touring, but and we really heavily marketed those, really focused on those exhibits, and that really changed the dynamic for us and brought in a huge audience that we'd never seen before. So a lot of young learners. So these are families with kids between the ages of, say, 1.5, 2 to about 6. And that was a giant new audience for us. And then that also translated into a huge increase in membership, because the vast majority of our members are families with young children. So it worked really great for us.
Great. And you talked about pricing psychology, and this will get important too when we talk with Joanie. But how did you determine how to set your prices, and how is that working for Liberty Science Center?
So I wanted to just start by saying, don't be afraid to raise your prices. I know it's scary to do big jumps and stuff. You'll think your audience will like notice, and they won't notice. You can do a small market study. You can have an intern just kind of look around at institutions like yours in your local area and in the national spaces and see where people are, where are their prices. I would be near the top of that if you think you have the value. Don't be afraid. You can also offer ways for people to get discounts. If you feel like it's against your mission to have high prices, we offer community evenings free of charge to certain communities we invite in. I know a lot of institutions offer special discounts if you're on SNAP programs. So there are ways to help communities if that's part of your mission. But we aren't afraid to go up in price, and it can make a huge difference. Even $1 or $2 can make a giant difference in revenue. Additionally, we aren't afraid to charge for premium exhibitions, our theaters, and we also charge a lot for those. We charge sometimes between $8 and $10 for add-ons, and people don't blink an eye. We run 25-minute 3D programs, and we charge $8 per person. We don't offer any child discounts. So we're trying to maximize revenue that way. We do have to keep an eye on the reviews, and you watch for pricing complaints and try to navigate that the best you can. And I think it's important to know that if you're priced right, it could really make up a lot of budgetary issues and constraints that you may have, and then leads you to have the extra money to bring in other exhibits and bring in other things and upgrade your theaters and upgrade your facility and make your value better. So it just is a win-win for the whole process.
What is Liberty Science Center doing to bring in young adults, like what Jennifer's doing with Fernbank After Dark? Do you want to talk a little bit? I'm going off script here a little bit. But...
Yeah, no, well, so we look at it as like layering. We layer audiences like by age group, basically. And so we bring in young learner traveling exhibits to bring in the families of the young children. We bring in premium exhibitions like Titanic, Sue, to bring in broader family appeal. We bring in tons of school groups, and those are, elementary school kids and high school kids. And then we do an after dark program like the Fernbank, where we run ours twice a month, and they're all theme based. So we do things like Winosaurs, so it's like a dinosaurs and a wine thing. We do Renaissance Fair. That's our next one coming up in September, and it's cool. It's getting a lot of attention. So we do these themes. People, even the themes are audience specific. So we might do like one theme might be Pride Month type theme. One theme might be more about science. One theme might be like a hip hop dance party. And we have a dance floor, and our center's fully open, so people can experience the exhibitions. And we also do like STEM programming as well, that are more in line with adults. So it's like more adult themed, and they're very successful. So our audience attendance has been floating between about 900 and about 2,000 people per night. And then those people, that's 21 plus singles mostly. And then they turn into parents, and then they bring their kids back when they have young kids, and the cycle continues, and it's really wonderful for an institution.
Yeah, great. Paul, anything else you want to share before we transition to Joanie?
I think that pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a good segue too, because with Joanie, we'll be talking about a lot of the same. Hi, Joanie. So good to
Hi,
have
Carrie.
you here.
Thank you for having me.
Joanie and I have worked together in the past, and she has a robust history working with the museum, and she did a good job introducing herself and where she's at now, but I'll let her answer my first question. Joanie, you've led museums to package everything under a single theme, like the Year of the Engineer. How does cohesive programming drive both marketing and fundraising success? And if you could give us some context, because we're talking about your time at Discovery Place.
Okay. Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I was lucky in my career to have two very successful examples on how you program and pulling things together. Let me explain the first one because it's a little bit more traditional. We did an exhibition called the Dead Sea Scrolls. This was many years ago. We actually produced it with the Seattle PacSci, Pacific Science Center. And so it was a first for us in many, many ways. Up until that point, the museum had never done an upcharge exhibition ever. Even when we brought in big exhibitions, supposedly big exhibitions like from India or China, we never charged. They got in with their general admission. So at that time, I think our admission price maybe wasn't even $10. Over the years, my brain gets fuzzy on what we charged. But to do the Dead Sea Scrolls exhibit, we were charging a $24 ticket. And we were so scared because, that's a huge, huge jump. That's $14 over. So to Paul's point, people didn't bat an eye on that. So that was very instrumental to me with pricing very kind of mid-career because I was always, to what Paul was saying, I was always at one like, well, we want everybody to come. That's what our mission is, access, all of that. And just as Paul pointed out, there are ways that you can address that with your community. So that was an eye-opener. And just so everybody knows, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and our slogan was 2,000 years in the desert, 100 days in Charlotte. It was really 102, but why mess up with the slogan? We did 227,000 people in 102 days, charging double what we normally even charge for our general admission. So there were so many lessons from that. The two biggest takeaways that I took away from that was the pricing, because that really blew me away and just proved we're correct on that. And then number two, the other, I think, bigger lesson I learned for that was for the first time in our history there, we all rallied around one theme. That's not to say the museum wasn't doing the 500,000 different programs that we normally do, birthday parties, school camps, Pi Day, Science Day, all the other stuff that we all do, right? I used to tell people, I wish we were a factory and made 10 widgets. No, we make 520 widgets, every one of them bespoke, right? But for Dead Sea Scrolls, we had a new CEO at that point who'd been started his career at the museum many moons ago. But we were disciplined in our message, marketing wise, development wise. It was all about the Dead Sea Scrolls. It was the countdown till that exhibit came. Did we still on our website and with our member communications talk about all the other stuff? Yes, but coming out of this museum to the broader community, to the 85% of the people who never stepped through your doors, it was that message of that exhibition. And the interesting thing is, I'm sure our science museum, I know, was just like Paul's or Jennifer's. We all have that, 75% are families, and you have your school groups Monday through Friday, 9 to 2, May through September. But when we did Dead Sea Scrolls, because of the topic, and I think because of the marketing and the success, we inverted our attendance. We were 75% adults, 25% families during that. So that was very instrumental to us. So fast forward a number of years, I can't remember the exact year. The second project that really brought this home was this was 2017 or 18. I happened to be out looking in California, watching a rough draft of a film, Dream Big, which was an engineering film. And for years I had been saying, we need to have something on engineering. It's STEM. Where's the E? And so I was like the rest, like, this is great. This is such a mission film. I went to go see a rough copy of it where we could give our feedback, and I was blown away. And I walked out of there thinking, I am the public who has the total wrong misconception of engineering, even though I'm science. And so it happened at a time that when I went back to the museum after that weekend, I had 85% of the company reporting up underneath me, including all of education, because our chief learning officer was gone. And so I came back and said, we're going to make this the year of the engineer. And just so y'all know, this was 5 months maybe before that we were going to launch this. And so again, I kind of adopted that Dead Sea Scroll model. Like, all of our messaging coming out of this place has to focus on this. It has to fit up under the umbrella if we're going to talk about it. So we deemed it the year of the engineer. We got the mayor to make a proclamation. Again, why mess up with a good slogan? It was really September through May, but it was basically a year, and we set ourselves a big goal. And this is something any successful museum will tell you, or program. We set ourselves some metrics that we had to attain. And when I was talking to my chief marketing officer, well, she was delighted because, wow, we get to talk about one thing and not 8,533 press releases. I said, well, how about if we could engage 250 engineers and we provided 2,500 experiences, and it impacted or touched 250,000 people. And so my marketing person, CMO, she was like, can we really achieve that, Joan? And I was like, I think we can. So we changed everything. And this is how we flipped the dime a little bit. I'd say generally now in most museums, a lot of the things they lead with, if they're bringing in big traveling exhibits, to Paul's point, is you're really pumping out that traveling exhibit, right? We flipped the script. And for those of you who have been here for a gazillion years, we went back to the 90s and made the film the headliner, which was Dream Big. And so that was the tent post for 9 months. I can't believe I'm going to say this on a webinar. I walked away from a substantial multi-thousand-dollar deposit and payments on a traveling exhibit to change the exhibit so that it would fit underneath. So the film was your main point. We aligned opening up a new thinker space. Everything fell under that umbrella. And because marketing was allowed to have pretty much one main message, development also, we were very successful. I mean, it was the first film in a gazillion years. I don't know if we ever raised this. We raised $700,000, over $700,000 in cash sponsorships, and several million in kind, and everything flew around it. And Carrie, if I don't know if our contact information is in here, but I actually do have a final report that lays out all the programming and everything. I'm happy to share it with everybody. I give it to all the people, say, steal it, go through it. But all of our programming fit underneath that. We did the first Saturday of the month. We had each Saturday, the first 3 Saturdays, first, second, and third Saturday. The first Saturday was you brought in engineers, somebody from that industry. They would be set up with their table. Whoa, sorry. I'm over my time. Sorry, Carrie.
You're doing fine. Thank you, Joanie. I do want you to talk about the competition in the market, though.
Oh, okay.
Before we move on quickly, because
Sure.
I think it's really important. We have a lot of pop-up experiences all
Yeah.
around our museums.
So
close on that?
Correct, 2 minutes. So
Okay.
I had another very instrumental time. We brought in the very first Van Gogh exhibit, 2014, the top one, the original from Europe. Amazing. It was upcharge. We did 60,000 people in 3 months, and we thought that was very good because we had never done like an immersive show. This is back in 2014. The ticket was, with including the museum, was $19, $20. Fast forward, I think it was last year, one of the Van Gogh knockoffs, not an original, went to a warehouse, charged, I think the beginning ticket was 40. I went to see it. It wasn't as good as what we had, but they did 361,000 people.
Yeah.
And so that was a very big tell to me, along with other things. I go to every pop-up in our city. And here's the main thing. A lot of these pop-ups are mediocre. But
Right.
people are paying, and this goes to Paul's pricing thing, minimum $30 going all the way up to 80 or more for whatever the VIP thing. I really don't know what that is that you're paying it, but they're paying it, right? And so it deeply disturbs me that people in your community buy a ticket and go to some warehouse they don't even know in like usually a bad part of town. You have to pass a couple like drug dealers at that point to give your ticket to somebody at a door you don't know, and you go experience that in those numbers. And I look at museums, which are the crown jewels in almost every one of their communities, that provide top experiences, top exhibitions, all of that. And we as an industry have to learn from that. And the big part of learning that is we're doing A-level stuff, but I don't think we're pricing it correctly, and I know we're not marketing it correctly. They are not using psychodemographics. So that is something I've spent my last couple years really digging into. And I think it should be the museums in their communities where, oh my gosh, this happens. Well, of course, it's going to be at the museum. That's where I'm going to go. So I think we need to shift that power and shift that access back to museums.
Yep, that's really important. Thanks for.
Sorry, I went over.
No, you're good. You're good. We're doing well on time. And we're allowing some time for questions and answers. So I'm going to hand this over to Carolynne. And thank you to those who have added some questions to the Q&A tab. Go ahead and add more now if you like. And I know that Carolynne had some teed up too.
Thank you, and thank you all three of you for sharing that, personal and institutional information with such a wide audience. That's really helpful. The first question I think goes to all three of you, actually. Have you seen an increase in donor or sponsor expectations? As in they want to see, you have a say in your types of programs, specific content. I mean, this is an age-old question, but I think in this current climate, people are a little more concerned with seeing, corporate sponsors maybe being a little bit more timid. Some people are seeing that, or other donors. So if you all could talk about whether you're seeing that yet or forecasting that.
I'll go first, Carolynne. It's a great question, and I know that is top of mind for folks. And to your point, it's an age-old concern, right? For the industry, we have not experienced that. I think what we're seeing, and I think it touches on some of the through line today in terms of metrics. That's what we're seeing. It's really from a measurement standpoint, and what's your impact, and can you demonstrate and articulate with clarity and precision what your impact is. So I think that's where we're seeing more focus. And it can be a challenge because, the adage goes, one donor, if you have one donor, one donor, and every donor is different. And many of their reports and expectations can be different as well. So it does put more onus, I think, on your development office, and to make sure that you have know that going into the relationship, so that you're tracking things and that you are capturing that data, and have your colleagues that you need to rely on, because that's often not just in the development office. It's working with your education office. It's working with the exhibits team, the marketing team, the finance office, to be able to paint that picture and to be able to share that story of the impact. So that's where I see more emphasis right now, is more on the metrics side.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Paul? Are you seeing?
So we haven't seen anything like that, but I will say that our CEO, Paul Hoffman, and our head of external affairs, Christine Schroeder, they have this way of doing things that I think are a little different. It's quite brilliant in that they look at what companies are into, like what are donors, large corporate donors into, like what jazzes them and what jazzes their executives. And then we tailor programs around that and then pitch that to them. So what we're trying to do is marry what they are interested in and what we can provide. And so we found great success doing that. And then that leads to more participation with our gala and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we operate. And I would suggest that if you can do that, I would do that.
Great, thanks. What about you, Joanie?
I second Paul's. If you know what you're going after, that makes it much more successful. It's still hard raising money. I will say one note to this. By and large, museums have a very, very, very desirable demographic for most corporations. To be able to come in and be embedded in an experience that's generally positive for a family, couples, whatever, they make memories, all of that. I think museums need to frame their ask better, and not necessarily like we need money, but like it's an honor to be able to be in front of our constituents, right? So that's number one. Number two, the other thing I don't think we tout enough is museums are highly trusted. They're one of the last institutions that are trusted, sadly, or have a high level of trust in our community. So I do argue that you have to safeguard that hugely, so that you're not letting the tail wag the dog. And that's why I think Paul's what he mentioned is the smartest. Go after what you know will align with you, and of course what aligns with that donor. But I think museums need to realize too that in some way that sometimes I think we don't think we have the power in it, but we do. I mean, look at the demographics or who comes into our membership and things like that. Those are highly, matter of fact, I just finished an article today on Disney World and their whole flip on that, and those demographics and stuff. And so never let the tail wag the dog.
Thank you. So another question from our audience, it says, I hear you with the experiences in the past being able to increase charges, basically pricing. With the current climate, can you talk about how this is impacting some of those larger jumps in pricing? And I will add to this a question of how often do you typically adjust your pricing? Because I think you got, like, some people mentioned different needs for different programs, but who wants to jump in on that?
Well,
First,
I
Paul?
can. I can. So we tend to, well, we have a lot of different pricing structures. So like we have general admission, but we also have school group pricing. We have advance and on-site daytime. Like, so you can change the way, like, for example, you can give a discount if they buy online 24 hours before or 12 hours before. That encourages like pre-sale, you know who's coming in. You also have a lot of their information, like their email address. And so we give a discount to that. But so you can adjust, like, okay, maybe your daytime pricing, your on-site pricing will go up, but you leave your advanced pricing where it is. Or you can change your school group pricing and leave your GA alone 1 year. It really depends. What I said before when we were having a conversation, Carrie, as well, is that you need to do a market study quickly about like who's in your area, what their prices are, what nationally, like if you're in a science center, what are all the science centers charging? You'll notice California is usually the highest. The coasts are usually the highest in pricing. And you can just decide like, okay, I'm going to try this. Maury also will tell you, if you're at 22, you might as well be at $24.99, because
Right.
people just psychologically expect, like once you've broken 20 or you're already at 24. There's no difference in their minds. If you're at 26, you might as well just go to 29
Mine.
and give yourself an extra, whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra revenue per year. So that's what I'd say about, changing your pricing but again, market study real quick. It doesn't take very long to look around. Just look at 20 different institutions or something like that and see what they're doing.
And I'll add to Paul's point, keep that in a spreadsheet and then make that part of your annual planning, right? When you're getting ready to go into your retreats or your budget cycle, you've already got a spreadsheet with everything there, and have a number of staff say, here's your 10, your 10, your 10, call it, fill this in. And just have that be a part of your normal planning process, because that also lets you know what's going on, not just in pricing, but other things that are going on in your market.
And Carolyn, I would just add that you need not just admission pricing. It's where you're looking at membership pricing. I mean, I know I was speaking about events earlier, and we're constantly, to Paul's point, keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening in your community. And where do you want to sit in that? Are you the premier institution? Can you justify being at the top end, or do you want to be middle of the pack? And you can do that from, what are your rental fees? For us, that's something we continually, to Joanie's point, it's part of the annual planning. And you have to be in front of that for certain things because you're publishing your pricing. What are your beverage prices? How are you structuring your beverage program for your events? We hold our liquor license here at Fernbank, so that's one of the event drivers for us. So anyway, I think it's all of those together. And I think Paul said it earlier, don't underestimate that ripple that $1.50 can have. And market studies and external factors, we also really subscribe to here and keep an eye on Colleen Dillenschneider's research is one that we really monitor, because she's doing some great research, and it's a great tool that you can have access to as well. So just another tip. And like Paul said, using external research as well.
I'll second Jennifer, the best investment, a small, large, whatever institution, is to have a subscription to Know Your Bone.
Well, I think in part of the underlying question of this question is the sense of economic fragility, or maybe downturn, and how maybe you predict or you adjust in that environment. You said assess your community, look at what everybody's doing, what's going on in your community writ large. But is there a sense that you just stay the course with what you have, or you're forecasting? There's both with the general admission, but also, I've heard personally a lot with fundraising, for instance, you're like in an election year, people hold back or whatever those things happen. So with earned revenue, is there that same sort of temperament of, what's out in the ether? Or do you just sort of stay the course and
I think you're always studying things, and Carolyn, I think you and I had an exchange on, metrics and measurement, and really keeping a close eye, having a strong finance team that is really studying what is coming in, how is it looking from a historical, what can you look back on for trends, really thinking through your forecasting and timing of your decisions, so that you're giving yourself some margin there, knowing, that's something we're certainly sensitive to right now. There's so much volatility. And so really thinking through, if you're putting in some price increase, when are you going to do that? What research did you do? If you're planning, if you're looking at your wages, because we all know how much wage growth, such a big part of our expenses of any organization. And when are you timing that? And what do you need to make sure that you're hitting before you pull the trigger on things to make sure that you're sustaining it? So I go back to, it is having a plan, monitoring, are you hitting that plan? Where are you exceeding or not exceeding? So it's all, our CFO, she'll often say, the numbers tell the story and reveal what's happening. And you cannot overlook that, and making sure you've got strong partnership with your team leads to also help them have that data and those, insights to make more informed decisions. So for me, it's continually evaluating and adapting.
Great, thanks. There are some kind of specific questions in the queue. One person asked, Paul, you mentioned your post-visit surveys ask 60 questions. What is your completion rate for this length of survey? And do you do shorter surveys for other thing, or do you sort of always have a long survey and see what you get?
So for intercept surveys, you really need to get those questions in. I could pass the questionnaire around to Carrie, and she might be able to distribute it to all you, so you could see like what we're asking. If that's okay with Maury, I don't know. But yes, those intercept surveys tend to be pretty long. For other kinds of things, yes, we do like 3-question, 5-question type surveys. But those are more like internal research that we do like within the team, and not something we like hire an outside consultant to do. The rate is really quite high, and you only need a couple hundred per quarter to be statistically accurate, so within like say 3 to 6% or something like that. So we get way more than that. And so it if the Maury group thought that we weren't getting enough, we would have to change the way we either did the questions or how we did the intercepts. But so far we get thousands of responses,
Wow.
which is well more than we need.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
That is.
And then Jennifer, someone's asking, what is the ROI on your Fernbank After Dark?
Well, it's funny you ask. I saw that in the post there. We actually had a committee meeting last week to just even study, and I don't have the Fernbank After Dark broken out, but just really studying our events business and how much it's grown. And so ROI, I mean, first 6 months of the year, it's around 200% at the moment. And so it's, so that's Fernbank After Dark with your other events. I mean, the event rental from an earned income strategy is so important. And it's, again, it's part of the layered programming. It's some of the revenues that are going to allow you to stay current and do what you need to do. So for me, that's, and I think it's important. I think, Joanie, we were talking about it in a prep call of, helping your team all see how all the parts fit together so that you have that, it's the, everybody needs to be rowing in the same direction. And that push and pull or tug that you can see, but to help everyone understand it's all of this together that makes it whole. I mean, you really have to have that diversification and understand that, when we're setting up for an event on a Friday night, it might feel a little disruptive for staff, but it's really serving a purpose. It is introducing people. It is helping our bottom line. It's helping our bottom line, which means we get to do more for our staff. We get to do more mission. And so it's that cycle. So that's something that I just think is important as well that we had touched on.
I second that. I think everyone in an organization throughout the whole organization. I think when we were talking, I was saying, just like when you're doing your onboarding and here's what you do with HR, I really think financial literacy is a big piece and that it's continually talked about always, because that helps your team then make better decisions when they're looking at things, and they can be more strategic throughout your whole organization. And then you harness that, right? It shouldn't be like, okay, directors and above or VPs and above. No, you want that net as big as it is, everybody rowing and getting that diversity of thought in there, because that makes you more successful.
And I did want to just emphasize too, just to go back to the question. Thank you, Jenny. Two things you mentioned, Jennifer, along the way was number one, it's very beneficial to have your own liquor license if you can do it. That's very profitable. And number two, the comment you made about someone who might have come to Martinis and IMAX when they were 24 is bringing their child back to the museum now, and that's kind of invaluable.
It is. I mean, it's, I think we all have touched on that. I mean, it was, how Paul framed it as it's the different, know your audience levels. And for us, we're really focused on how are you providing experiences, meaningful experiences, really from cradle to grave is how, we think about it. And I cannot tell you how many times people have told me they either got married here or I came for a date night, and they're coming back as with their kids. And then you want them to come back as empty nesters. And then I want them to come back as grandparents and to bring them. So it is that holistic picture, and thinking about how are you pulsing things, and, providing that layered programming that can do that, whether it's a year of the engineer and you've got something for the itty bitties, all the way to the expert engineers for a deeper dive into the content.
I have a question. Um, and it's more to a financial question to Jennifer. We held our liquor license too. Do you see much of an impact when you hold, there's two ways to do it, right? You hold the liquor license, or you have usually your concessions or your caterers or whoever hold it. With the institution holding it, do you see that impact your liability insurance much on your bottom line, or nothing?
It's always, we've always had it set up that way, and it has made more sense for us to do that. And then to have we have preferred caterers. We run our
Right.
own, we run our own dining services. We run our own store. So we really do that. And then we have catering partners that we work with who we trust in the institution. But this also gives us a little bit more control over, we know what training everyone's going through and whatnot.
Right.
Well, I think we might be out of time, Carrie.
We are wrapping it up. So I just want to draw your attention to these bullets. A lot of takeaways. The conversation morphed in a great, brilliant different directions. I wonder if we can share this slideshow recording.
Yes, it'll be on the Praxis. All these webinars end up on the Praxis website, so they can be accessed later. And also, folks can get in touch with us. I think, we can share, we can follow up usually with those who attended as a follow-up, but also we will be having a future follow-up. And I think also we mentioned we are going to, some folks will be at ASLH, and some folks will be at Aztec, to make sure to connect. And we are looking at, like Carrie mentioned, we're looking at some shorter, more informal gatherings to dig into topics through the industry. So stay tuned for that.
Yes. Thank you, Carolynne. And thank you, Jennifer, Joanie, and Paul. Really dynamic, brilliant discussion. Thank you so much for attending, everybody.
A lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.